I would have called you this afternoon, but I was.
Tuesday, October 9th, the village board meeting. We all stand. We'll have Trustee Costa lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Present.
Trustee DeVivo? Present. Trustee Kajanis?
Present.
Trustee Nemeth? Trustee Sabo? Present. Trustee Yukich?
Present.
Mayor Daley?
Present. Okay, are there any amendments to the agenda? All right. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 28, 2012?
I so moved.
First by Trustee Sabo,
Second.
second by Trustee Yukich. Any discussion?
Yes, I have an item.
Okay, Trustee Sabo, go right ahead.
No. On page 13, second to the last page. Page 13, second to the last page, the third paragraph up. Trustee Sabo asked for clarification that each project will come before the village board for approval. I think there was more that went with that section. It may have been about, and I'd just like the clerk to check the minutes, verify by tape, and add what else I would have said there.
Okay, we will do that. Let me think here. Do you know what you are referring to?
Well, one of the items that I had said that I was just recommending that on the project, when it comes to a vote, that it requires a supermajority. It never was discussed, but that was something that I did mention that night.
Okay.
And I think there might have been a little bit more with that. So we're talking about amending the agenda, and I think that I could make a motion to amend the agenda with a second, but I just wondered if that's the process, if the correct process, if the clerk would be checking to verify what I said.
Okay, the minutes then would move forward subject to clarification of that paragraph of what you said. Is that the way it will go?
And what we'll do, Mayor, we will check back on the tape, and as you know, the clerk does not type out verbatim, because if she did, the minutes would be just ominous, but she will listen to that portion of the tape and type it out verbatim, and then that's how we typically would do it.
Okay, and then would the board see that again then?
Well, right, if it's verbatim, if we put a verbatim for your request, we would approve the minutes per that section that you're talking about being verbatim, and the board wouldn't need to see it again. It's what you said.
We could then, if you approve the site, then we could redistribute them signed, and of course they'd be online signed, so the board would see them again.
The board would see them again. Okay, because I know they would be approving something sight unseen, so should we just hold the minutes then?
I think as long as you're in agreement and the board's in agreement that we take that section verbatim off the tape, I could ask the clerk, village clerk, was there a problem in hearing Trustee Sabo during that portion or no?
No, I don't believe
Pretty
so.
clean? Okay, so she could just take it verbatim off
Take it verbatim.
the tape, and then you'd be.
Okay, so the amendment there has to be an amendment though, doesn't there, to this agenda?
No, I don't believe so.
To this amendment?
There's a motion to approve the minutes of August 28, 2012 with the provision that the subject matter where you ask for clarification for each project will come before the village board for approval. Starting there, the village clerk will add verbatim off the tapes what you said.
Okay, so the motion does not have to be amended? Okay.
Not as far as I know, does it, Terry?
Not necessarily. If you want to do that, you can. It doesn't make any difference.
You might want to pull that in front of you.
It doesn't necessarily have to be amended. If you want to do that, you can, to satisfy Trustee Sabo's concern.
Okay, who was the first on the?
I was.
Okay.
Trustee Sabo was first.
Okay, so you'll amend your motion to reflect what was stated, that the minutes will reflect verbatim what you said, starting with trustee Sabo asked for clarification of each project.
Yes, I do amend my motion to read that.
Okay. And the second was,
And I'll second it too.
second was by trustee Yukich. Any other further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. Okay, moving along here. Let's see. The next portion of this meeting is reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. I'll start out here. I'd like for everybody to take a moment here to observe a moment of silence to remember the life of the 16-year-old Homer Glen resident, Jay Bannock. As we mourn the tragic loss of his life, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and friends. Please join me in a moment of silence. That includes cell phones. Okay. Sorry to see that happen. I was called on it that night. It was a very tragic accident to a young man. Next is the Will County Water Agency update. The Water Agency met this morning at 11 a.m. in Bolingbrook. At the meeting, the agency approved bills, selected letterhead and logo, discussed the formation of a proposed budget, and approved the banking relationship with Illinois funds. In addition, the agency received its purchase offer, in addition, the agency revised its purchase offer to American Lake Water, Illinois, American Water for the Bedford Park water transmission line. The agency will be offering American Lake Water $37,600,000 for the purchase of the line. In addition, the agency will be providing ALW with a copy of the Crow Horvath professional appraisal report. The agency will be giving ALW 30 days to respond to our final offer. The next meeting of the Northern Will County Water Agency will be Monday, November 12th? No,
December 10th.
yeah, mine is wrong, this is December 10th. The next meeting of the Northern Will County Water Agency will be December 10th, 11 a.m. here in the boardroom in the Homer Glen Village Hall. Under residential permits in Homer Glen, the village has issued 4 new residential home permits for September. In 2011, the village issued only 1 new residential home permit in September. The village has issued a total of 14 new residential home permits in 2012, a 75% increase over 2011 totals at the same time. Under National Fire Prevention Week, this past Saturday, my wife and I attended Homer Township's Fire Protection District Fire Protection Open House. This informative event had safety activities planned for families so that all participants learned how to stay safe in the event of a fire. Fire Prevention Week was established to commemorate the Great Chicago Fire, the tragic 1871 blaze that killed more than 250 people, left 100,000 homeless, destroyed more than 17,400 structures, and burned more than 2,000 acres. On this anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire, the International Fire Marshals Association decided that the anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire should be observed, not with festivities, but in a way that would keep the public informed about the importance of fire prevention. This year's message for Fire Prevention Week 2012 is, have 2 ways out. Under achievements, congratulations to the Homer Junior High Mustang girls softball team for winning the state quarterfinals and earning a spot in the Illinois Elementary School Association's state tournament Final Four. Under home rule referendum, public information meetings, I encourage everyone in town to join me at public information education meeting about the home rule referendum on Tuesday, October 30th at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held at the Homer Junior High on Bell Road in the school cafeteria. Informing about the meeting will be advised in ads to be placed in the Homer Horizon. Finally, a couple of happy birthday greetings. Happy birthday, Trustee Nemec, whose birthday is Thursday, and Trustee Yukich, whose birthday is Tuesday. I hope that you both enjoy your special day. And with that being said, we'll start with trustees' reports. Trustee Costa, how about you?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, how about you, Trustee Yukich?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only thing I've got to say right now is, with a time change coming up soon, getting dark out earlier, getting dark out, or staying dark later in the morning, we do need to watch the driving, the speeds, and just pay attention, put the seat belts on, and take your time. It's very important. We did lose someone, unfortunately, that's going to be missed, and we don't need more. So please just pay attention. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Yukich. Trustee Sabo?
Thank you. I'm going to report for the Environment Committee, on the Homer Glen Lands Day, the tree planting ceremony, which is the second part of the Homer Glen Lands Day, although Homer Glen Lands Day was last month. The tree will be planted at Schilling School. The date for planting is Wednesday, October 24th at 10 a.m. The location is in the area that is the east end of the parking area on the school property. And the Homer Glen Environment Committee is pleased to be able to add a tree to their landscaping since the school has lost a few trees. We encourage the village board and staff to attend if they are able, and the public is invited to attend, and more information will be placed on the village website. All the children will be invited to see the tree planting, and Rick Gomez of Instant Shade Transplanting Company is providing his services to plant the tree, and it's quite an experience especially for children, to see how a very large tree is planted. Another item for the Environment Committee would be stargazing, which is October 19th. And we are once again, the Environment Committee is once again reminding the adults and children to spend time viewing these stars at 8 p.m. To 10 p.m. at Homer Township's Trentina Farm. The location is on 151st Street, just east of Gouda Road. Large telescopes will be brought to the site by volunteers, and the 3 volunteer clubs will have their members providing information about Andromeda, Pegasus, Capella, Cassiopeia, and the Milky Way, which are going to be featured on October 19th. And this is a cooperative effort of the Homer Glen EMA, the Homer Township, and the Village of Homer Glen. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Sabo. Trustee K. Janice?
I no report at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Trustee DeVivo?
No report at this time.
Okay, is there a treasurer's report tonight?
No treasurer's report.
Okay, how about anything from the clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just want to remind everybody that on Monday, October 22nd, we will start early voting. You can do that here at the Village Hall in this room, and it will go through Friday, November 2nd. It'll be 9 to 4, Monday through Friday.
Okay, thank you. Does the village attorney have a report?
Yes, Mayor, briefly. This is with respect to the completion of the research regarding sign restrictions, political sign restrictions, and restrictions of signage in the public rights of way. We completed our research, and the bottom line is that if the municipality wishes to restrict signage, political or other signage, in the right of way, it must treat all signs equally, and that has to do with size, time restrictions, and whatever other restrictions are put in place. The board, as the owner of public property, can also determine that it does not want to have any signage placed in the public rights of way. If it does do that, it must enforce any such regulation or restriction in an ordinance equally with respect to any signage placed in the right of way.
Thank you, Trustee, our village attorney. Are there any task force chairpersons in the room that would like to report? Are there any public safety officials? How about the village manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to have Mike Slamovich give the board and public an update on the Enbridge pipeline work that's been happening through the community. Mike, if you would, please.
Obviously, everybody's aware, has seen a lot of digs throughout the village. Enbridge Pipeline has been doing a lot of testing and repairs on their pipeline. Probably the most visible locations and those mostly affecting the residents. The one location at Golden Oak at the road crossing has been completed. Heatherwood, the roadway crossing, they're anticipating completion of restoration approximately in a week. There's a second dig at Heatherwood off the road, and they're estimating probably a couple weeks to complete that one. We have two locations right across from the village hall here that they were working on. The first location has been completed, and the second location, they anticipate starting restoration within a week. And then probably finally, the location on 151st Street, which ultimately will require the closing, most likely closing of 151st Street for a period of time. Enbridge is actually waiting for ComEd to relocate a pole before they can get in and do their work. I've also received notice from BP Pipeline that they're going to be doing some testing on their pipeline as well, beginning on or around the 10th of this month. And that's...
Thank you, Mike.
Anybody have any questions for Michael? Go ahead.
Where on 151st?
It'll be just east of Suffolk, kind of right across the street from where the detention pond is for Kingston Hills. Basically where the ComEd right-of-way is, the high tension lines are.
And the only other dig is in your front backyard, Marvin.
Pardon me?
The only other one's in your front backyard.
I just wondered where it was on 151st. So it's going to be east of Bell.
Correct.
Is the village manager?
Very good. I have a couple of items, if I could, please, Mayor.
Sure.
For the public's benefit, the mayor and the board are familiar with this. We have applied, as we often do, the mayor and the board have given staff direction to go after as many grants as possible. So we've applied for what's referred to as an OSLAD grant. They're related to parks and recreation. The village received word last week that we will be moving on to round 2 of the 2012 OSLAD grant process with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. So there were a total of 69 applicants that submitted grant applications to IDNR, and they have cut 20 of those, so we're down to the last 49. So Trustee DeVivo, who is chairman of our Parks and Recreation Committee, myself and several other staff members will be traveling down to Springfield later this month to give a presentation to IDNR on our application for a park in the Goodings Grove subdivision. The second item I have is on electric aggregation. As I reported at the last meeting, we discovered right before the last meeting that the master list that ComEd had sent on to the Will County Electric Aggregation Group was missing Homer Glen residents. ComEd went back, spent quite a bit of time to fix that list, which they did. That list has been provided to the Will County Electric Aggregation Group. A new letter has been drafted that not only will communicate what the previous letter communicated to residents last month, those residents who received it, but will also communicate why they're getting the letter late. And those letters are to be mailed out to the remaining Homer Glen households who do not receive the letter next week. There will also be, may already be up on the website, this exact information. We were waiting, so we had a better timetable to communicate to residents. And I think that was provided today to our webmaster, so that should be up online explaining all this also. Third item I have is there was concern at the last meeting raised about the village board meetings on LCTV. The last 2 board meetings are being broadcast at both 6 and 9 p.m., usually on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Unfortunately, the schedule does change and the village doesn't have control over the schedule. But right now, the standard practice for LCTV is to try to run our meetings at 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And as also I reported last meeting, our meetings are up online on our website at www.homerglen.org and also are uploaded onto YouTube. The fourth item I have to report is we did get our final totals from Vintage Tech, which was a company that we brought in to collect all the electronic recycling items from our event, a very successful event on September 15th. Trustees Tech reported that they collected 31,387 pounds of electronics at the September 15th event. The largest single item in that 31,000 pounds was almost 12,000 pounds of televisions. And as I reported previously, 40 to 41 pallets of electronics. Finally, for those of you in the community who are notice things like this, our community entrance signs will be disappearing over the next couple weeks. The village is refurbishing our entrance signs on 159th and Bell Road, and also the one that's out here in front of Village Hall. So if you see them missing, please don't think that they've gone missing. We're just refurbishing them. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, the next portion of the meeting is public comment. Thank you, Joanna. The first person that would like to speak in public comment is Robert Bichette. Did I say that right? And we need your name and your address for the record.
Hi, my name is Robert Bichette. I live at 15226 South Mackenzie, over Glen. I'm back again. I was here at the last meeting when I presented a couple of letters that we'd gotten from the Bank of Countryside about our lost letter of credit that Homer Glen failed to act on. I was just called. I came back basically tonight to, what's the status of it? The board members. Obviously, hopefully, you discussed the fact that there was a little negligence involved with that letter and our streets. I want to thank the mayor, though, for his work on trying to get all the streets of the subdivisions that don't have letters of credit. We had one. We don't have one now. We'd still like to see that proceed. Because it's very important. The way home values have gone down tremendously when we say, well, here's our, our subdivisions that aren't finished. Less opportunity for people to maybe come buy a lot or build a home. We'll get more than 12, as we had today. I was curious, too, as to how many of the board members were around then in 1990, when I was at West 2006. When that came up. I noticed last meeting you talked about a subdivision that had a warranty, letter of credit that was discussed. If our letter of credit was discussed, I went online and it only goes back to 2007, beginning of 2007. So I don't even know if we were even discussed or if it was just totally, tossed away. We're a small subdivision. There's only nine homes that were built in it, but it affects 11 homes. Some of these other subdivisions are huge, many, many more homes. I would just, hope that you guys can come up with a plan for us and the other subdivisions that, especially with this irrevocable letter of credit that is gone now. So. That's about it. I don't know if there's any discussion you guys have, but thank you for my time.
Thank you. Okay, next speaker, Dennis Goring.
Dennis Goring, 12250 West Derby Lane, Orland Park, Homer Glen. Mr. Mayor, you've taken a lot of the wind out of my sails that I was going to talk about today, and that was the issue of home rule. I sent a little note to Cameron the other day suggesting that a meeting be held at the junior high, much like they had for the bond sales, the bond issue. And I was told through the grapevine and so forth that letters that have gone out to homeowner associations informing that the leaders of the homeowners association that there will be a meeting for them. There's a lot of homes in Homer Glen, a lot of areas that don't have homeowner associations. The whole, as far as I can determine, northeastern portion, Derby Meadows, Lancaster, I believe, and Sylvan Hills, we don't have any homeowner association. Didn't know a thing about this meeting that's coming up at the 15th or the 9th. Pardon me?
I believe it's the 30th. Is that correct? 30th?
There's two separate meetings. We're having one that where we invited homeowners associations to attend, and then there's always been a second meeting, and that's the one on the 30th.
Okay.
Okay, so, I'm glad to see that there's gonna be, hopefully a huge turnout at the, junior high, meeting. This is an important issue as far as I'm concerned for Homer Glen. If we lose home rule, this could have devastating effects on this community, and I don't think anybody here wants to see that happen. I keep referring to the survey that was taken by the Homer Horizon a few weeks back, where 50% of the people don't want home rule, and the other 10% didn't give a damn one way or another. That's a big hill to overcome. So I hope that between now and the November 30th meeting, or the October 30th meeting, that a lot of publicity is given to this. In articles in the Horizon with some nice headlines that would maybe force people to read it, because there's been very little in our neck of the woods, my neck of the woods, concerning home rule. I have a sign out in front of my house saying yes, I think it conforms to the village code on residential signs, and if it doesn't, I guess somebody's going to come and take it down, because I'm not. That's about one other thing concerning these properties that the village wants to finish off with streets and lights and so forth. I've gone through about 5 of these communities, and there's a lot more vacant property there than there is occupied property. I would hope that before any money, bond issue or otherwise, is spent on these communities, that we find a way to get that money back that is 100% guaranteed and ironclad. We've got some streets in some neighborhoods that wish they had street lights and sidewalks. And I think you know what I'm referring to. And we'll just let it go at that. So I don't want to see the village spending any money that we're not going to get back. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Steve Brown. Steve, name and address for the record.
Sure. Steve Brown at 16234 Merrimount. And since we're quiet here today, I want to commend you, your Mayor, the fact that both you and Cameron have raised the town's level of sophistication that is about to occur soon, and the level that you have been providing us. However, as I tuck that to you, village of Homer Glen, community of nature and harmony. But what's my issue? It's hunting. Where can you go in Will County to hunt? Well, if you are truly a hunter, you probably go down to Braidwood, you go down south. But I want to know, where do we go hunting if you're a hunter around here? 15 minutes from Costco, and better yet, this 159th development that you're working on. I want to know if anybody, any major corporation that wants to move down here is going to be hearing gunshots off of 159th Street. Because as of right now, that's a hunting zone for people. So my issue is, why do we have hunting in Homer Glen? This has been an issue for a long time. This is the only place that I know. You can't go to Lamont, go blasting. You certainly can't go to Orland Park and go blasting at anything you want. But in this county, this is the only place where you can go ahead, take your shotgun out, walk to a site, and blast a critter. This is ridiculous. It's over. This is 2012, 13, and we can still go ahead and go blasting. This is something that has to stop. I'm prepared during hunting season as an instigator to find a dead deer, put it on 151st Street near Parker, and blast it away. To get all those citizens that live in the area to hear the fact that things are going to go happening. People are going to be revolting against the fact that there's so much damn hunting around here. This is ridiculous. There shouldn't be the amount of hunting in Homer Glen. If people that live here can drive 25, 30, 40, 50 miles and go to a hunting area. I'm not against hunting, it's just why do we have hunting here? This is ridiculous. Somebody's gonna get shot, or dogs are gonna get killed. In other words, there's gonna be an accident. We have too much of it. It's too close to residential homes. We've got to stop it. The hunters don't realize, and this has been an issue, the hunters that live around here want to have the right to hunt. They don't seem to realize that there's also a contingent that have moving to Homer Glen that want to see the critters, want to see the geese that fly over. My neighbor, Peltier, actually, gunshots are coming out of his place like they're going out of style. And most of the people that are hunting on his property basically don't live here. I mean, we've got to change all we have to do, because we're not getting any revenue from this. That's the main key. The DNR makes money from hunting. We don't make a darn thing. We're the people that are losing our wildlife and our nature and harmony. That's what's going on here. We have to have a referendum unless you vote for it, and that's not going to happen. I think that there should be something a lot stronger in consideration. We have to change to us being more modern. We are the only place that allows hunting. You can't go to Frankfurt and blast away. We've got to go in the same form that most of Weld County is going. I can't go shoot a deer in Lockport. This is ridiculous. We've got to change. We've got to have no hunting rules. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, the next items on the agenda, that concludes public comment. The next items on the agenda are the legislation and action items. Is there a motion to authorize the mayor or the village manager to execute a contract for work related to the biodiversity grant for Heinz Emerald Dragonfly in the amount not to exceed $19,900? First by trustee Sabo. Second by trustee DeVivo. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo? Aye. Trustee Pajamas?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo? Aye. Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, this would be H2. Is there a motion to recommend approval of the proposal from HR Green for engineering services related to the completion of certain public improvements in the Amberfield Townhome subdivision in the amount to not to exceed $8,000?
So moved.
First by trustee Costa,
Second.
second by trustee Yukich. Is there any discussion? Trustee Costa?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Can we discuss the substance of the report, or are we going to do that later?
HR Green is going to do a presentation.
Okay,
Well-
I'll hold my questions on.
I would say, if you want to discuss the substance of the Amberfield report, Mayor, this would probably be a good time to do it, because the presentation later is just for the 9 non-LOC subdivisions. So if you have a question about the Amberfield report, this would be a good time to do it.
Okay. What would be your question?
General question. I read the report. It's very well written. Whoever wrote it, very easy to follow. I like the way you put your exhibits after your narrative, so I think it's a great report. My question is, we're looking through this report, and they're given their, again, what they found, and then some recommendations, if you want to say that. There's a number of items in this that the developer really fell short on, and I mean major issues. Example, 4-foot sidewalks instead of 5-foot. Detention area is not even close to being large enough. And on and on and on. So, do we have a mechanism to, and especially the roads, because the road is a big deal. When you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, the engineers are here, you talk about 10 inches of aggregate instead of 12, and of course if the bedding isn't right, no matter how much asphalt you put on, it's just never gonna, you're always gonna be putting money in it. Don't we have a mechanism to go and periodically check before things are done in the subdivision?
Well, I can address that. Obviously, your current staff does. A lot of these things, of course, were done years ago. So your current staff absolutely does. As a matter of fact, we've done that, right? Because you released a couple letters of credit where staff and the engineering firm have gone out along with the township, just recently, along with the township representatives, where we've gone out, they've checked at the end, they've made sure that everything is fine before recommending the release of those letters of credit. So yes, now we can't really speak to the practices of several years previously before your current staff is in place. What we're asking for tonight in this report is, obviously they've laid out a number of things that are deficient, okay? The number one thing staff feels, this is from a staff perspective, the number one thing that needs to be addressed as quickly as possible is curb to curb, or back to curb the street. We'd like to get that done yet this construction season, if this approval happens tonight, so that this subdivision can be placed on the plow, first of all, so that we can accept the roads, and then second, so that it can be placed on the plowing schedule with the Township Highway Department. So this is one subdivision kind of off the list that's troubled by snow plowing issues. And then, based on how much is actually spent, depending on how much is spent on the road, we're expecting about
Approximately
$100,000.
100,000.
Then you'll have $90,000 left, or roughly $90,000 left of the letter of credit. And in the spring, either this winter or in the spring, the board will then have to look at the remaining things that H.R. Green has highlighted in that report and decide which one of those you'd like to do, because you'll have $90,000 basically to do it. And this $8,000 that you're approving tonight, if you approve it, this will also come out of the letter of credit line.
See, the situation with this subdivision is that they did have a letter of credit, and the subdivision actually went down. And we did pull the letter of credit. So we have, and I'm sure you read the report, we have round numbers, $190,000 to work with. So the engineering company is trying to recommend a priority of how you go about fixing the issues when you do have money and when you don't have money. Fortunately, in this case, we do have some money. I did sit and talk with H&R Green on several occasions, and almost in every situation, they would tell you the number one priority is to get the final lift on the street. To snowplow when you have the binder down and you have exposed manholes, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to snowplow, very dangerous for people that do snowplow. The fact is that the binder is only intended to be down there for a certain period of time, and if it gets compromised, then the base below the binder gets compromised, and you know this from construction. All of a sudden, you've got a much bigger problem. So in every one of these subdivisions, I think the focus of the first move, anything the village does in any of the subdivisions, would be to get the final lift done. Unfortunately, like I say, in Amberfield, they had a letter of credit. I don't know if you want to call it foreclosed, bankruptcy, whatever. The letter of credit was pulled, and now we're going to hear recommendations from H&R Green as to the priority of how to spend the $190,000 from an engineering point of view.
Yeah, like I say, thanks for everything. I do understand all that. My bottom line comment is, we do have a mechanism now to, as developers are coming in, and they're going to come and build subdivisions, or now as more homes are being built and the subdivisions already started, that we have a periodic check so we don't get to a point where there's 2,000 feet of sidewalk in a very small subdivision that is more narrow than it should be. Not saying it's unsafe.
Well,
you know what I mean? So
here's the way that would work, Mike. If you had the letter of credit in place and the final inspection went out, we just released the letter of credit at our last meeting because all the engineering was checked, it was proper and what have you. In this situation, if this hadn't foreclosed on, we would have sent the engineers out when they went to get their letter of credit released. We would have said the plans call for 5-foot sidewalks, not 4-foot sidewalks. They would have had to tear those sidewalks out and rebuild them. That's their fault. They have a set of plans, they have engineers, and they are approved per plans. We inspect for release of letter of credits. We go out there and do inspections from time to time. This situation, the project became dormant. It was obvious that they were going down, and like I say, fortunately enough, we have $190,000 to do some of the improvements with the money from the bank that guaranteed the loan from the developers. But we do that, and it is in place, and this was prior to this board being in place, I can tell you that.
One final question, I just say, we will be much more active during construction. In other words, we won't wait until sidewalks are poured to say, wait, these are only 4 feet wide. We will be much more active. I can't speak to what happened, neither can Mike, because this predates him before, but this will not happen under our watch. The other thing that's really, really important to do is that you have to make sure that the letter of credits that you're securing and that you're keeping and that you're reducing over time leave enough money to accomplish what you need to accomplish. Or from the start, that the letter of credit is large enough to accomplish what you need to accomplish. So H&R Green has basically told you that you have $400 and some thousand of potential improvements in this subdivision. We have a letter of credit for 190. So much more attention is being paid to the amounts of letters of credit, I think, today than potentially was paid to in the past. Those are the two things that we're going to do.
And you're correct when you're talking about a procedure where I've developed for years in Frankfurt. You don't get to put concrete down. You have a pre-concrete inspection. They make sure it's the proper rebar. They ensure that it's the right size, that it's in the right place. So you have a pre-concrete inspection, then you call for your concrete. So this didn't happen in the past. I mean, you're correct in the sense that we have to have a procedure in place, that we have these pre-inspections, and we totally intend to do it. Unfortunately, we have not had an awful lot of building in this downturn in the economy, but it's important to have those things in place. You do underground inspections before they're allowed to backfill the trench. Pre-concrete inspection, pour inspections. That all should be in place because in every community that I've ever worked in, it's in place. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions, Trustee Sabo?
In this subdivision, there was supposed to be a lot more amenities. And one of them that isn't included in the HR Green's report because it was not, as I understand in talking with Mike Salamovich, it was really not part of the proposal, but was part of the park plan, the donation area. And going back in time, this was a great donation because it would have taken care of the park that is north of the detention pond, that is in the north area of the subdivision. And there would have been a bridge to walk over the tributary that eventually joins Long Run Creek. There would have been walks on the other side. There was a 5-acre parcel that is near the present path on comment property. So it would have been a great amenity for the people that live in the subdivision. And so I just wanted to inform the trustees of that we're missing that great thing. Maybe someday something will happen there. But I know we're really addressing what is very needed here. In the report, and I've also talked with Mike Salamovich about this, it has to do with the fact that we did not ask HR Green to provide in their review a map identifying each lot with the numbers. So there's a lot of reporting that they have done with the referring to lot numbers and who are the owners of the lot and so forth, and and which lots are not built on because they may be detention or they're or for some other reason. So we've agreed that it would be nice to have a reduced size of the plan itself that shows the lot numbers so that when we read these, that we can actually relate to it without having to come to the office to see the big map. So, and then Trustee Costa has addressed sidewalk issues, and there are other issues here where it hasn't been completed. In HR Green's evaluation, they could not evaluate the mesic and the planting that was around the detention pond, and it was cut because it was also not in compliance, although it was it was coming into bloom. So I had wondered why they had that cut before HR Green was allowed to be whoever, the owner, whoever is handling the property now, why H.R. Green couldn't inspect that. Now that explains it. So those were my concerns. This subdivision, I still think has potential, but and I hope someday something will happen to bring it about, but we're doing what we can.
Yeah, it's a very nice subdivision. It just ran into some hard times, and the guys that developed it, ran out of money, and we will still, it's a park donation, we'll have the property, and as time goes on, if the park committee and the board wishes to improve that site, we still have the property, and we will do what we can do to improve the subdivision with the money that we have, and we'll move from there. So are there any other questions? Madam
Yes.
Clerk, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we've had a lot of conversation. I know we're going to have further conversations on the subdivision going forward in the future. But I do believe under this budget and the constraints of this budget, we are prioritizing the needs of the subdivision. We can get off into park discussions today, but that's something in the future. But as of now, we're talking about the basics of life safety issues. I believe getting this road down in time for the winter is paramount for the residents that are there. So, as we move forward into the future, those other subjects will come to mind as we budget it forward and prioritize things through H&R. But I know we all agree that it's a life safety issue at this time. We need to get this road down. We need to move forward before the asphalt plants do close.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVivo? Aye. Trustee Kajanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve a proclamation designating October as Texting and Driving Awareness Month in the Village of Homer Glen?
So moved.
First by Trustee Costa,
Second.
second by Trustee Yukich. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Kajanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo? Aye.
Okay, I will read the proclamation because I think it's important. Proclamation recognizing, motion carries. Texting and Driving Awareness Month, October 2012. Whereas the Village of Homer Glen holds the health and safety of its youth, adults as a chief concern, and whereas text messaging is the main mode of communication for most American teenagers, with half of all teens sending between 21 and 70 texts a day, and whereas 90% of American teenagers expect a reply to a text message within 5 minutes. And whereas texting takes one's eyes off the road for an average of 5 seconds. And whereas in a recent survey, 43% of American teenage drivers admit to texting while driving, even though 97% of them know it is dangerous. And that same study showed those who send text messages while driving are 23 times more likely to crash. And whereas a driver that sends a text message while driving not only jeopardizes his or her safety, but also the safety of passengers, pedestrians, and other drivers. Now therefore, the Mayor and Board of Trustees of the Village of Homer Glen do hereby proclaim October is Texting and Driving Awareness Month in the Village of Homer Glen, and do hereby ask our citizens to take the pledge to never text and drive again. It's unfortunately, we've had a death in the community of a young person, as we took a moment of silence for before. It's a very important issue. Personally, myself, I think it should be outlawed. I think the officers should be able to issue tickets to somebody that's very obviously texting or replying. It's just going to get more. It's going to get worse and worse as time goes on. So that proclamation motion was approved. The next portion of this meeting is a workshop. Back in April, the village board approved a contract with H.R. Green to perform an engineering analysis of each of our 9 non-letter or credit unfinished subdivisions. Copies of HR Green's reports were previously provided to the village board. Tonight, Mr. Akram Chaudhry and Mr. Matt Abudu of H&R Green will be formally presenting their report to the board. Now guys, if I butchered your names, please reintroduce yourself, and it's your show. Step up and let us hear your presentation. Sure.
Good evening. I'm Akram Chaudhry from HR Green. Thank you, the village, for the privilege to work for the village, and also for the opportunity to make the presentation on non-LOC unfinished subdivision inspection summary. With me, I have Matt Abudu. He is the project engineer on this project. He personally made his inspection and subsequently compiled individual inspection reports for all those 9 subdivisions. And I'm going to ask Matt to come forward and make a presentation on his findings. And in the end, we'll be able to answer and entertain any questions you may have. Matt?
Good evening. I'm Matt Abudu. As Akram has mentioned, I performed field observation for these subdivisions and prepared the subdivision observation reports. Thank you for the opportunity to summarize our findings to you. So the completed subdivision observation reports consist of a punch list identifying corrective action to existing infrastructure and outstanding work items necessary to complete the subdivisions and achieve village acceptance. The reports include detention basin, drainage feature and volume analysis, parcel identification, an engineer's opinion of probable cost to complete the punch list items, and location maps were provided in the reports. Documents utilized for the reporting were approved civil engineering improvement plans, plans of subdivision, reports for the pavement cores performed by Chicago Testing Labs, landscaping plans if available. Out of the 9 subdivisions, we received landscape plans for Glen Walk Estates and partially completed landscape plans for Stonebridge Woods. And record drawings if available were used. Out of the 9 subdivisions, we were able to obtain as-built for sewer and water improvements for Black Rock Estates. The infrastructure components we observed within the right-of-way were the concrete curb and gutter, asphalt pavement, sidewalks including the handicap accessible ramps, bike paths, sewer and water appurtenances such as the water valve boxes, fire hydrants, storm and sanitary sewer manhole structures, the park restoration and landscaping, street lighting, signage, and erosion control measures. The items outside of the right-of-way that we looked at were detention basins. We performed detention basin surveys to compare the current characteristics of the ponds versus what was intended for the improvement plans. We took a look at restoration and landscaping of common areas, bike paths, and erosion control measures, again, outside the right-of-way.
Matt, can you grab the microphone off the stand there? Just hold it, because when you turn to the side, it's not catching your voice. Thank you.
I apologize. Okay, so now I'll go into each of the subdivisions by alphabetical order, and I'll briefly summarize the current needs, future needs, and associated punch list costs. Beginning with Black Rock Estates. Black Rock Estates is 14% occupied. The total estimated cost to complete all punch list items is just under $93,000. Our current needs would be the roadway and curb and gutter improvements, this being your curb and gutter spot removal and replacement sections, pavement patching, miscellaneous grinding, and the final surface course overlay, with an estimated cost of $37,000. Our future needs would be completion of the sidewalk within the right-of-way where proposed, parkway trees and restoration within the right-of-way, and sewer and water cleaning and corrective work. Our pond analysis concluded that the detention basin in Black Rock Estates does comply with the design and is adequate. The major area of concern in Black Rock Estates, as you see, there's some heavy pavement failure here on the Aaron Lane cul-de-sac. Significant patching would be required to correct this, which is included under the roadway improvements. On to Cedarbrook. There's one home built in Cedarbrook. I believe it's a model home. The total estimated cost to complete all punch list items is just over $1,319,000. Current needs would be a roadway and curb and gutter improvements, consisting of spot replacement of the curb and gutter, miscellaneous grinding, and the surface course overlay. Pavement patching is currently not required in this subdivision. We also have some erosion corrections that would be recommended. There's a couple areas we would recommend cleaning up to avoid current and future erosion issues. And the estimated cost for your current needs is $102,000. Future needs, lift station completion. There's a partially completed lift station out there. It appears the underground well and pumps are in, however, the electrical components and controls have not been finished. Sidewalk completion within the right-of-way. A bike path, including pedestrian bridges. The proposed improvement plans include a bituminous bike path along Cedar Road, 151st Street, and on site with 3 pedestrian bridges, none of which have been installed. Parkway trees and restoration within the right-of-way. More future needs. Pond restoration. For the areas surrounding the ponds within the outlots, outside of the right-of-way, these areas are not restored, but H.R. Green had provided the option to restore these areas in the punch list. In addition to this subdivision, that's the case in all subdivisions where your ponds lying within the outlots do not have restored surrounding areas. Topsoil stockpile removal. There are 2 topsoil stockpiles that would need to be removed in Cedarbrook. Eventually, we wouldn't get the signage, street signage and pavement markings in, sewer and water cleaning and corrective work. And pond storage volume shortage evaluation. Our pond analysis concluded that all 4 ponds have volume, as-built volume storage deficiencies versus what was intended. When this is the case in all these subdivisions, we would recommend further analysis of the original pond design. We may find that that original design was very conservative, which would allow the current volumes to be acceptable. In some cases where the volumes would have to be adjusted, this could be done by minor adjustments in your outlet control structures, such as your restrictor manholes, which is highly more cost effective than regrading these pond areas. And please note that the total estimated cost does not include further evaluation for any pond storage volume shortages. Here's a picture of your incomplete lift station. Here's one of the areas where you can see the erosion has created sediment traveling under the roadway. To correct this, it'd be recommended to stabilize that area behind the curb with turf growth to avoid future erosion problems there. Here between 2 ponds, you have some storm sewer that blew out. It'd be recommended to reinstate this storm sewer and stabilize the area to avoid future erosion issues as well. Moving on to Cypress Point. Cypress Point was found to be 50% occupied. The total estimated cost to complete the punch list items was between $345,000 and $346,000. The current needs would be your roadway and curb and gutter improvements, spot repairs to your curb and gutter sections, pavement patching, miscellaneous grinding, and the surface course overlay, with an estimated cost of $62,000 for the roadway improvements. Future needs would be sidewalk corrections and completion within the right-of-way, parkway trees and restoration within the right-of-way, sewer and water cleaning and corrective work. There is a bike path that is proposed per the plans, but does not exist. That's along the east side of the detention pond. There is a single stockpile in Cypress Point to be removed. Again, pond restoration, the pond area is not restored in Cedar or in Cypress Point as well. And pond storage volume shortage evaluation for the single pond would be recommended. try to get a better picture of the pond. You can see just outside the water's edge and underneath the trees, you can kind of tell that it's unrestored there, unmaintained. It's listed as an option to restore these areas when the ponds look like this. A couple areas in Cypress Point look like this. This is a utility trench that is settled. This will dictate pavement patching. It'll easily correct this problem prior to the surface course overlay. On to Erin Hills, Unit 4D. Erin Hills is at 17% occupied. Total estimated cost to complete all punch list items is just shy of $592,000. Current needs would be roadway and curb and gutter improvements, spot repair to the curb and gutter, patching, miscellaneous grinding, and that surface course overlay, with an estimated cost of $124,000. Future needs would be your sidewalk completion and corrections within the right-of-way, parkway trees and restoration, sewer and water cleaning and corrective work. At some point, get the street signage and pavement markings in, removal of the topsoil stockpile on site. Both ponds have, their surrounding areas are unrestored, unmaintained. We have some miscellaneous equipment and debris to be removed. And both ponds could use further evaluation with regards to the storage volume shortages. There is sidewalk installed within the right-of-way adjacent to the detention pond out there. There is also a bituminous bike path installed throughout, which complies with the improvement plans. Again, you can see surrounding this pond there is vegetation. However, it's I believe not intended. It's just weedy, and there's no clear-cut landscaping or maintained restored area. Moving on to Evelyn's Gate North. Evelyn's Gate North is 35% occupied. Total estimated cost to complete all punch list items is almost $473,000. Current needs would be your roadway and curb and gutter improvements, do standard curb and gutter spot repair, patching, grinding, surface course overlay, and in Evelyn's Gate North there is a concrete alleyway proposed according to the improvement plans. We also recommend signage and pavement markings, street signage and pavement markings after the overlay, just based on the occupancy level in Evelyn's Gate North, which is rising as there are homes being constructed currently. The estimated cost for the current needs in Evelyn's Gate North comes to $150,000. Future needs would be your sidewalk correction and completion in the right-of-way, parkway trees and restoration in the right-of-way, any sewer and water cleaning and corrective work. A bike path is proposed in the improvement plans in several areas, and this does not exist. We did include installation of that bike path in the punch list, should you decide to move forward with that improvement. Pond restoration, there is a single pond in Evelyn's Gate North, which has the surrounding area unrestored. And removal of miscellaneous and equipment and debris in this subdivision as well. A single pond was evaluated and has a volume shortage as well when compared to the design. In Evelyn's Gate North is a public park with surrounding areas being restored and landscaped. The parkway within the right-of-way in this subdivision does contain parkway trees. It's landscaped, maintained, and there's also a sidewalk within the right-of-way adjacent to this common area. Now, the improvement plans include concrete sidewalk in Evelyn's Gate North. However, brick paver sidewalk exists. To comply with the improvement plans, Major lists or identifies concrete sidewalk to complete the sidewalk within the right-of-way. I understand that the village may want to consider continuation of brick sidewalk to match what currently exists. Moving on to Glenview Walk Estates, 34% occupied. Total estimated cost to complete all punch list items is almost $1,972,000. But the current needs would be your roadway and curb and gutter improvements. Glenview Walk, it's the same as most subdivisions, spot replacement to the curb and gutter, pavement patching, miscellaneous grinding, and the surface course overlay. We would also recommend street signage and pavement markings in this subdivision as well, based on its occupancy, with an estimated cost for your current needs coming to $229,000. Future needs, sidewalk correction and completion on the right-of-way, parkway trees and restoration on the right-of-way, sewer and water work, berm work and landscaping along Hiller Drive. The improvement plans include an arrangement of berms to be landscaped along the south side of Hiller Drive. These berms are not in. There is a clay and a topsoil stockpile on site to be removed. Pond aeration evaluation, the improvement plans include aeration to be performed in the north pond. During our several site visits, we noticed pond aeration equipment next to that pond. However, we never witnessed any aeration taking place. Corrections to the gravel walking path. There's a gravel walking path throughout the common areas as proposed per the plans. In several areas, there are surface deviations from washout and those areas settling, which could potentially cause a trip hazard for pedestrians. And we would also recommend evaluation of the pond shortages that we came up with for both ponds. All common areas and pond areas are landscaped, maintained, along with the associated or the adjacent parkways. They have parkway trees, sidewalk, and appear to be maintained as well. You can see the gravel walking path is in, and that meets the intended design. It's kind of hard to see in this picture, but this is just south of Hiller Drive, north of 159th Street. There's a large clay stockpile there. I identified that as a future need to remove this stockpile. And then this is the area where the arrangement of berms were proposed. Here's an example of your surface deviation and your walking path based on the settlement in that area. And the north part, you can see the perimeter of the pond is landscaped. And this is the pond that is supposed to be aerated. Moving on to King Drive. King Drive is 17% occupied. There's basically one home in that subdivision. Total estimated cost to complete all punch list items is just over $198,000. Current needs would be your roadway improvements. On King Drive, there is a private road called Jessica Lane. It has a rural cross section that basically means there's no curb and gutter. The roadway improvements here would consist of pavement patching, the surface course overlay, and aggregate shoulders, with an estimated cost of $41,000. Future needs would be comprised of grading and shaping the ditches along the rural roadway, parkway trees and restoration, storm sewer cleaning. There is no sanitary sewer or water main out in this subdivision, as the lots will utilize well in septic. And the streetlight installation, there is a missing streetlight that was proposed in the plans near the entranceway. And we would recommend the pond storage volume shortage evaluation for 2 of the 3 ponds.
3 ponds.
Here's a picture of the private road, Jessica Lane. You can see it's a rural cross section without curb and gutter. During our site visits, we identified that 2 of the 3 ponds were dry, most likely due to the drought-like conditions we had. On to Stonebridge Woods. Stonebridge Woods was found to be 28% occupied. Total estimated cost to complete all infrastructure punch list items was almost $1,439,000. Current needs would be your roadway and curb and gutter improvements, curb and gutter spot replacement, miscellaneous grinding, patching, and the surface course overlay. We would recommend street signage and pavement markings following that overlay. And there is an area that is recommended to have an erosion correction. I have a picture to follow up on that. And the estimated cost for the current needs comes at $353,000. Future needs would be your sidewalk correction and completion work within the right-of-way. There are segments of bike path proposed within the right-of-way. that would need to be completed. Parkway trees and restoration within the right-of-way, sewer and water cleaning and corrective work. There is an earth stockpile to be removed, and 5 of the 7 ponds we recommend be evaluated based on the shortages that came up with the storage volumes. There's a nice public park within Stonebridge Woods serving many amenities. The surrounding areas landscaped and maintained. We have Stonebridge Drive near 159th Street within the south. You can see the necessary paving patching within the pavement, the binder course there. The islands landscape maintained. You can see the parkways have parkway trees. There's a sidewalk and bike path within the right-of-way. This is the case adjacent to all common areas and outlots within this subdivision. And here's a picture of the earth stockpile. This one's got a little mixture of what appear to be clay and topsoil. This is an area on the west side of Stonebridge Drive, behind 2 lots where there's some erosion taking place. You can see the sedimentation's made its way onto this bike path, and it's also crawling towards the pond, which would be on the right side of the picture. So to resolve these issues, it'd be recommended to stabilize the area, which would be where the erosion and sedimentation is coming from on the left side, clean up the bike path and any debris or sedimentation that is making its way towards that pond. Last subdivision, 55% occupied is Windsor Court. Total estimated cost to complete the punch list items is just over $222,000. Current needs would be a roadway and curb and gutter improvements, curb and gutter spot replacements necessary, pavement patching, miscellaneous grinding, and your surface course overlay. Streetlight pole replacement has been included. There is a streetlight pole that appears to have been hit by a vehicle and in need of replacement. The estimated cost for your current needs in Windsor Court is $76,000. And your future needs would be your sidewalk completion in the right-of-way, parkway trees and restoration in the right-of-way, and sewer and water cleaning and corrective work. Our pond analysis concluded that the pond storage volume is adequate within Windsor Court. You can see that the areas surrounding the pond within this picture at least are restored, maintained. That holds true for everywhere around this pond. Adjacent parkways have landscaping, parkway trees, they're restored, maintained, and there's also sidewalk within the right-of-way. Here's your damaged light pole. And here's an example of the, how good you can see up at the common pavement deterioration occurring on Windsor Court. And that concludes our summary. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity, and we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Very thorough, and we definitely know what we have here. The problem is it's a mess, and we don't, we have not concluded what the answer is yet. But like I said, we do have the problem correctly identified. I challenge the trustees, and I want to think long and hard about this, what is the best way to approach this, come up with suggested solutions to this problem. The homes in a situation like this are basically unsellable. Nobody's going to buy into something that is a subdivision that has no end result, that you don't know how these municipal improvements are going to be built with whose money. I'm going to have the village attorney here in a second explain to you where it actually is. The priority of what improvements take place first is another issue. But we have to decide what we're going to do with this. We clearly identified the issue, and now it's up to the board to decide if they believe municipal dollars should be spent to make the final improvements on these subdivisions as a result of what I feel is a gross mistake on the behalf on behalf of the village. These letters of credit should have been secured. In certain circumstances, they were never asked for. That is not the issue of the people that live in these subdivisions. This was the village not operating correctly. So with that being identified, I need your help in suggesting answers to the problem versus sticking our heads in the ground and avoiding the situation. With that, that's my comments on it. I'm well aware of being in construction, what the issues are. I know the ramifications of people being able to sell or who's going to move in. Nobody's going to be able to sell, and nobody's going to move in these subdivisions without a clear indication of how these municipal improvements take place. It goes as far as when we were at Silver Cross Hospital. I'm very excited about talking with the people that built the hospital, and one of them, the village manager, was with me. A person that built the hospital said, I said, well, you know, we have a lot of lots, a lot of subdivisions to accommodate medically related people, some nice higher-end homes. And the number one statement back to me was, nobody's interested. We hear you have all kinds of problems with these subdivisions. That was the statement of the person that built Silver Cross Hospital. And the village manager heard the same thing. So this thing has to be resolved in some way, shape, or fashion. So that's what I want the village board to concentrate on, to figure answers out for that. Now, the gentleman from H&R Green presented the issues to you tonight, so you know what I want you to start thinking about. And if you have questions for H&R Green here tonight, I open the floor up.
Questions for H&R Green, or just concerns and responses on what we're looking at?
Whatever you'd like to discuss, it's open. I mean, we've got a big situation.
I'll be more than happy to start. First of all, some of these subdivisions are still owned by the builders. So they're still there. So we need to go to the builders and find out what they're going to do about, or we start paying taxpayer money. That, you know, the residents in the rest of the village, you know, we're going to open up a giant can of worms here. If we start going into some of these subdivisions and fixing them up, like one gentleman, and we won't say any names, was here before at the podium, he has problems in his own community or in his own subdivision. If we start fixing these, why aren't we going to fix them in the other ones? So I would say, first of all, looking at what we're looking at here, the only thing that we should be concerned of right now, and I do feel bad for the people that are in a bad situation right now, but we didn't put them in it. A lot of this stuff was done by Will County before we even became a village.
No, these were all subdivisions approved by Home Run.
Well, I don't believe.
And in any case where a builder still is actively developing in the subdivision, there may be ways to not issue him permits unless he produces a letter of credit. And you're correct, there are a couple of those that have developers still operating and coming in and being issued permits with no letter of credit, which means we can get to the end game where they run out of lots, not counting the ones they sold off to other builders that aren't responsible for the development,
Right.
and they go like this and they walk away.
You're right, no argument. But Glenview Walk, I'm 99% sure that that was approved by Will County. That kind of happened right when we were going into becoming Homer Glen. That's the biggest one, it's $1.9 million. But then when you're looking at what H.R. Green did, and I agree, I think you guys did a phenomenal job. But just because the stuff is not black and white, you know, in front of us doesn't mean we have to pay for it. You're looking at anything that's a life safety issue, yes, it should be addressed. As for the streets, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. Whether it was finished before or not, if the streets were worn down, we would be repairing them no matter what. They go through all the subdivisions, they find out which ones that have already been finished up that has a problem, and they go in and resurface them. So what would be the difference if we went into all the ones that need resurfacing and resurface it? We do have money for them, and it's in the fund right now. As for signage and pavement markings, yeah, we should put up the signs, we should do the markings. As for sidewalks, there's a lot of subdivisions that don't have sidewalks. And if they have to have sidewalks, mine's a perfect situation. We have sidewalks on one half of the street. They're not on both sides, so you can cut the cost down in half right there. Parkway trees and restoration. Where I live, we gotta put the trees in, so why shouldn't the homeowner put their own trees in? That cuts off a giant, we just have a whole bunch of waste here.
What H&R Green did is they put together a complete study of what's missing. And George, when you have a letter of credit released, the plan calls for the sidewalks, it calls for the front, the tree in the front yard. I'm not saying that, we have to do those issues at this point, and it actually is traditional that you don't put the sidewalk until the house is built,
Correct.
because you have to cross it with
And
machinery
you
and what have you. I agree with that. But the thing about it, at the end of the day, the backup device, which is called a letter of credit, or a developer's agreement, neither one of those exists.
Okay.
And in most situations of these subdivisions that we're discussing here, there is no active developer that owns it. Stonebridge, yes. Evelyn's Gate, we're working with them. What is it? Glenview what? No.
No.
And you could go on and on and on. So I believe the only ones that I know where we have opportunities to adjust and what have you is one, Amberfield, because we have a letter of credit that we've just pulled. We have Tri-K Development in Stonebridge or Evelyn's Gate that we're working with, where they have a letter of credit on one side of the subdivision, but not on the other, which we're working to get the improvements done there. But in a vast majority of these, there is no money, there is no agreement, and I would like the attorney just to weigh in 1 second to explain how that works.
Just briefly, I know that the board rightfully is concerned about if we expend these funds, is there any realistic possibility that we're going to be able to recoup? Your primary backup, of course, is the letter of credit, which is no longer a topic of discussion, so to speak. The only other realistic possibility is if, excuse me, if there's an enforceable development agreement, okay? And then, if the developer is still solvent or even in existence, if certain builders own certain lots, that doesn't, just ownership of the lot itself doesn't require them to make the public improvements. They would probably make certain improvements for the owner, the people who are going to buy the buildings that they build. So without either the LOC or an enforceable development agreement, we're not as a municipality, we're not in a real strong position to expect that we're going to be able to recoup any of the funds that are laid out. I'm just telling you that because it's a reality. It's a legal reality. I'm sure you understand that. So the only other thing we can do is try to explore some as yet unknown creative ways to get something possibly from, if there does exist, landowners with a lot of lots in the subdivision, possibly work out some kind of an arrangement. But that's not even a fact that we've even gotten to explore at this point in time.
Mayor, if I could just add to just for the general information. So staff has been spending obviously a lot of time researching all the subdivisions, and we actually provided the first subdivision, the packet of information for the first subdivision that we completed to the village attorney last week, and that's Cypress Point. And so what does that mean? That means that Attorney Horvath has a binder at his office, which we have one here, and it has any amount of information. It has this study in it. It has all the letter of credit information for Cypress Point that we've been able to find, every document that we've been able to find in the village record. It has copies of the dates of when the board took actions on letters of credit, when they reduced letters of credit, when they returned letters of credit to the bank for Cypress Point. It has the development date, it has all this information in it. And then the owners of the properties that remain, who the original developer was. And we're doing that for every one of the subdivisions. It's taking quite a bit of time. And as we get them done, we're giving them to Attorney Hornet, and then he will take it from there and review all the documentation, and he will come back with a report for every subdivision about where he thinks the village is from a legal perspective on that subdivision. Earlier, Trustee Gage brought up Glenview Walk. Glenview Walk, unfortunately, is one of our worst examples. That is a Village of Homer Glen subdivision. It was approved after the village was incorporated. What you might be remembering, Trustee Gage, is that the county reviewed a lot of the plans for that because you had them on staff here. Unfortunately, the county gave us a letter suggesting that we obtain a letter of credit, which we have not been, which was never obtained. So it's actually one of the worst case scenarios for us in our review. We're still trying to dig for information for that subdivision as we are for the other 8 that we have not yet completed. So it's an exhaustive process. I wanted to let you know that Carrie's gotten the first one, and Sue Styler, who's one of our part-time employees, knows more about subdivisions in Homer Glen now than she ever imagined. She's been digging into this every single day she's here, and we'll continue until we're done. So that gives you a little example of what we're going through.
But back to my point on this. Give me 1 second. All right. Here, give you a perfect example. We'll go with Cypress Point for a second.
George, why don't you pull your microphone up a little bit?
$346,000 is what they're saying it's going to take to fix everything. First of all, we should not be in the business of fixing everyone's problems, because then we just become the main government, and that's why we're broke. You have roadway and curb and gutter improvements for $62,000. If that's what it needs for a life safety situation, village should take care of it. Sidewalk, a homeowner should take care of it. Parkway, trees and restoration, homeowner should take care of it. Sewer and water cleaning, find out what it is, let the village take care of it. Bike path, if it has to be in, then the village should be the one that puts it in there. Topsoil, I've talked to landscapers, they'll be more than happy to go in there and get all the free dirt and clay that they want. They can do it subdivision by subdivision, and I do understand that there's a way around all this. You know, we're putting something before the village saying, here, we want to spend, I want to say it comes out to about $8 million of taxpayer money to fix something that this could be just the beginning of the situation. That's the last thing we should be telling them. You know, the problem that's, and not to get political, Jesus, when is someone going to take responsibility for some of the things that's their problem? We have builders that own property here. Even for Cypress Point, 50% occupied. It still has open lots. Then you find out what the builder's got on it. We can put liens against property. We can put impact fees on everything that they come in to build it. We need home rule to make sure that we can follow through with a lot of this stuff, which would make it easier. But, you know,
Some of the stuff you're absolutely correct. This was not, nobody is saying that the village is obligating itself or suggesting to obligate itself to the entire amount of improvements. But where this thing started out with is you have to identify what all, the study was done to identify all the deficiencies in there. Now the question is what does the village feel proper on stepping into to handle? You're talking about life safety. But for instance, the sidewalk, we go back to that. The builder should absolutely have to put the sidewalk in that connects with the adjacent lots. Or if the adjacent lots aren't built, he puts the sidewalk in front of his house when the lot next door sells. That's the way a development works.
Right.
The tree in the front yard can be incorporated into the price of the home. So there are things that can be worked out through the owner of the lot. But there are municipal improvements that the individual owner of a lot is not responsible for because he wasn't the developer of the site.
correct.
So if the developer of the site owns lots, whole different situation. Now you go in, for instance, you know, I'd rather not use names at this point, but you go in and you just say, we do not have a letter of credit in your subdivision. And here's the situation. We're not going to wait and hear at the end of the story after we've given you all your permits that you don't have the money to finish the municipal improvements. You're only 35% finished. You own 90% of the remaining lots. You are coming in with a letter of credit or you are not getting a building permit. End of story.
Right.
And he is forced then to sell the place because he's still solvent. And the person that he sells it to then, when he comes in, you are going to have to come up with the letter of credit for the remaining municipal improvements. Otherwise, you don't get the lots. So what HR Green prepared for us today was just an oversight of, to get it to village standards, which if we had a subdivision come in today, they would have to produce a letter of credit to adhere to our ordinances that have all these improvements within their development plan. Unfortunately, we have situations where these people are gone. They're gone. They're out of business. They do not have, there is no money. There is no bank. There is no letter of credit. And the question of the day is, how can we assist these people in what, in your terms, are considered life safety issues, so that people can see, they have lights on, they can see going up and down the street. They have a final lift on their street, and a lot of this is just identified by H&R Green that it does not have to be a village expense. So when we're talking about $6.5 million, that's the outside number, and there are engineers typically add a fudge factor in there because they don't want to say something can be done for $6 million and it actually costs $8 million.
Right.
So there are additional numbers pumped into this. But the question of the day is, when you think about this and what we want to do or how we want to move forward on this, what truly should the village do to make these places safe so that we can take them over and have the highway department snowplow them, have the fire department and police departments to be able to get into them for life safety issues. And, as somebody that is the mayor, I was getting calls all last winter. I had to call the highway department up and tell them, you go in there and you plow, because I just drove through there and I had to drive my 4-wheel pickup in there, and, I could barely get through some of the drifts.
And that's life safety?
That's life safety, right.
Right.
So, in a lot of circumstances, nobody's plowing these things. Nobody wants to plow them because they don't have final lifts on them. They've got raised manhole covers. So the challenge of the board is to figure, how can we get these developments in shape to the point where builders will say, yeah, we're going to build into the price of our home, the sidewalk, the tree, the this, the that. But another thing that goes into it is you don't have proper drainage. You've got these inlets and these outlets that were set up for proper drainage with the detention ponds that aren't working, and that causes flooding. So this is what I'm challenging you all to think about, is we think about what we would like to do to help our residents and to help the ones that are stranded in these subdivisions that have no recourse to action.
And then you come up to the fact that if you're going to do that, how do you pick and choose which one is the best? So all I'm saying, and then I'm done with my comments for the night, is we need to find out what streets have to be done. Plus, if you get the streets finished and we accept them, highway department can go out and get more money from the state to plow them, because now they're getting paid to do. Because right now we're responsible for them. Well, we're not responsible for them because it's not a road. But
they have been dedicated to
right.
this, yeah.
So Mike really should not go in there plowing, because if God forbid something happens, we could be in trouble.
He doesn't unless it's a life safety issue at this point.
So if we accepted the roads, did the road improvements on them, and then from there, find out, or actually right now find out who owns what. That's what we need to find out. Who owns what? I've talked to a couple of the builders that are still in business, and both the builders that I did talk to said, we don't have to do anything in theirs. They will do everything. And one of you mentioned before, they said they'll take care of it. Some of them, like you said, Glenview Walk, no, he's gone. But there were 35% of people living in it. Well, 35% still leaves us 65% that you've got open lots. And that's when we go in there and we find out. If he's out of business, he went into foreclosure, the bank's got to be holding the paper on it. Right now, the government's giving 80% of value to all this stuff because they want all these things off the books of the bank. Have the bank give us the property. Or turn it over to a real estate agency, sell it, you put the money towards the thing. Well, there's ways around this, and all I want to do is I don't want to be peeing away the money that the taxpayers are paying here. We pay way too many taxes in the first place, and we keep taking on responsibilities of the people that came in here and made millions of dollars. So now it's time we turn around and just, if they didn't finish it and they were supposed to, we have the right to go in, take away what they do have, and pay for, we're not looking to make any money on it. All we're looking to do is finish up what should be finished up.
The guy that's in front of us, when they filed for foreclosure, he's already taken over lots. They don't have anything. they place liens on everything that the guy has. So in the case of Cypress Point, for instance, the developer in there, and I'm not going to use names, he's gone, he's done. There's X amount of lots left. There is a final lift you can go through on Cypress Point, what's needed, what the outside number is and what have you. But that person is gone. That's never going to be completed. Because the remaining lots, the person that bought those lots is not responsible for the development. He's responsible for his lot that he wants to build a house on, which there's a fat chance that he's going to ever be able to sell a home in that subdivision as a result of no municipal improvements. So there are some we're working with developers that, for instance, in Amberfield, we do, I think we should...
Mayor Amberfield isn't part of the iron.
I understand it, but I'm making a point here. In Amberfield, for instance, we shouldn't be sitting around here. We have $190,000. We should move forward. We should make legislation to start out right away before the asphalt plant's closed, with a final lift on that street and fix the curbs to make sure that it accepts the final lift.
No argument, no argument.
Okay.
And we've got the money for it already.
That solves.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
if I
Trustee Jens.
may make a couple points. You bring up a subject that we had earlier today in our conversations regarding Amberfield. And I reflect back, if these other subdivisions that we have accepted them, or have not accepted them in the village because there's no LLCs, no completions of the product, but yet we were able to pull LLCs, we wouldn't be having this discussion except for when we're going to go forward on the expenditure of the money. The people, whether it's 14% or 50% or 35% of the people that moved in there, moved into these subdivisions for one reason, and that is for their pursuit of their happiness. I don't believe government is the answer to all problems. But then again, I don't think government should be part of the problem. And part of the problem with the government right now that we have in the past is we did not execute the LOCs or the proper documentations for the LOCs. So we were a hindrance for the pursuit of happiness and the quiet enjoyment in these subdivisions, which in turn cost the possibility of life safety issues and possibly equity with their investment. One of their largest investments they're ever going to make in their life, in their home. So we were part of that process that I believe we did not satisfy our obligation to the citizens of our community. I believe for this, we need to address this, whether the developer is still active in the subdivision, we need to ferret that out, or not active. But what we need to do is come to a resolution here. We've talked about this, we've kicked this can down the road for a number of meetings and years. I think we need to come to some settlement on this, on what we're going to do for these subdivisions, on the basics, the raw basics. Please, let's get this moving, let's get this process working, at least for the streets. I'm not talking about all the fancy bells and whistles, but get the basic things going so they could start having quiet enjoyment for their investment. As when they chose Homer Glen as the community to live in and raise their family and have their future grandchildren come and visit them. I think we owe it to them. We helped in the process of fumbling the football in this village for whatever reason, without putting blame, but we're part of that process. I think we just own up to it and get on with it. And you're right, there was a comment about spending money, and that's a problem with government. Government spends money where it's not necessary. This is a little different situation. I believe spending money in life safety issues is necessary.
Going back to one thing that I want to do for the next meeting, if everybody's pretty much in agreement, and Amberfield is not one of these LOC issues, I want to bring in legislation next meeting, and we put the final lift and fix the curbs in Amberfield. And the rest is, Trustee Janice mentioned, the bells and whistles. We can look at it at a later date, how you spend the balance of their LLC. but the plants don't close till probably mid-November. We have the opportunity, but we can't act on legislation here because it wasn't part of it. So if everybody doesn't have a problem, I would like to put it on legislation next time, and let's knock out their streets.
Yep.
Okay.
The bids,
I
the
think
bids, the bids for, excuse me, trustee Pajas, the bids for the Amberfield Road project are opened on the 18th, so there will be a proposal for your next board meeting.
Good.
And I apologize, Cameron, I kind of jumped in, I apologize, but what we gotta look at is wants, needs, and necessities. Let's just break it down to 3 words.
Trustee DeVille?
I have some comments. Whether or not we decide that we're going to do something or not, there's really a process that we need to take a look at. And I agree with Trustee Yukich. We're not going to do all the bells and whistles, but we need to do the life safety, which is the road. We need to find out what we need to, what's the process? Do we need to take the subdivision over? Can we just take the roads over and not take all the rest of it, not handle the lighting? All of that really needs to be looked at yet. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a pile of subdivisions I don't think are necessary to do. King and Trustee Sabo goes back to this one. King Drive, this is a private subdivision. I'm not going to ever agree to do the road in that. I think that that's something that we need to really look at. That was always supposed to be a private subdivision. So we can eliminate a lot of this.
Yeah, the instructions for HR Green, so that we knew the total scope of what was the open source in the community.
And I agreed to that. I agreed we look at all of this, but and Evelyn's Gate, it's my understanding that he's going to finish that. Stonebridge Woods, I understand wants to finish his road.
Stonebridge Woods does not have a letter of credit, and they do come in for building permits, and
We can work on that.
and are receiving building permits with no letter of credit.
And
My answer to them is, we don't give them building permits until they agree to a letter of credit.
yes, Cedar Brook, there's one home in there. I mean, maybe we do a portion of this road. We shouldn't have to fix up the whole subdivision for one home. And it's the same thing with Black Rock Estates. There's 2 homes, and if you go there and look, the road that he built, you don't need to go down that road. Tell him to tear it up if he doesn't want to fix the road. Let him do it. I'm sorry, but that's the builder, I think, that lives there. So
Yeah,
we're down to a few.
I just go back to
More
saying, we wanted to see
Exactly.
everything that we
I
were
understand
exposed
that, but I think this is a whole lot more reasonable, it's more palatable to take a look at 4 subdivisions and decide if we're going to do something, it's surface the road, get it prepared so that it can be taken over, or do you take it over first and then surface the road? How we do it, I don't know, but
Well,
that's what we need to look at.
That's the question of the day is, I think we all agree we're using a term, the bells and whistles. You don't have to go in as a municipality and put all the bells and whistles in. HR Green did a fine job in identifying the entire issue. Now it's up to the board to say what they want to do in these subdivisions to get them to where we can take them over. If they're in some reasonable shape and have the predominant municipal improvements in there, we can take over the streets. We can have them snowplow for the people that live in them. We can make them look good and enticing to people that want to come in and build in there. One of the issues, and I'm sure HR Green would agree with me, and I know we got people that have been in construction on this board, a problem that isn't addressed becomes a bigger problem in the future. Meaning the binders and the base, when you don't have a final coat, eventually you beat the curbs up with snowplows because they're not equal to the final lift equals the height of the curb. The binder fails, the base underneath the binder fails. Now you're talking about digging the base up, the binder up, and you've got a much bigger issue.
12 inches.
Yeah, so you have fold-up cuts. So we can go in and we can get the base necessities done, which in talking with HR Green, the #1 priority should be the curb and gutter right out of the box. And
I'm gonna make it safe for them to get in and out. Police, fire department, EMA, everyone's safe to get in and out.
and be able to have Mike put his guys in there to snowplow.
Right.
And put them on the list, detention sidewalks and trees and things like that are all additional things that have to be addressed as you move down the road, some of which the builders will have to do. But the life safety issues, I think, should be moved forward. Okay. Trustee Pastor.
Thank you. You know, everything that I've heard up here, I pretty much agree, and I think we're all on the same page with a lot of it. Trustee DeVito hit it right on the head. There's probably 4 or 5 subdivisions that we can put on the bottom of the pile for various reasons, if we all agree to that. And I'd like to see us move forward in a timely manner and try to get the other ones done. The mayor, you're 100% right. Look what happened in Amberfield here with improper roads. Now we're spending more money because the curbs have busted up and because it's not properly done. But if you overlay all the issues in all the subdivisions, they are all inherent with subdivisions. Of course, I live in Meadowview here, so we went months on end without final lift on our street, but we always knew that when that last house went in, we would get our final road. And what happens here is we do have residents that are in there waiting for the final house, and it's not going to happen. But whatever we do on these roads, and there's a reason why a contractor doesn't do the final lift. As a heavy equipment is going to be moving in and out of there to build a home, it's going to tear the roads up. So I would like to make sure that whatever we do on the subdivisions, and I am all for moving forward on, especially the 4, aside from the ones that Trustee DeVito talked about, let's get the roads done.
Yeah.
We don't need, personally, my personal feeling, we don't have to sit here and beat a dead horse to death. We need the roads done. And if we have other areas that we can possibly repair so that it does get further damage, we should do that also. But we also need something in place so that when next year comes and a contractor comes in to build a home or more homes, that we have something to protect the road that we spent money on, that they have to repair any damage and make sure that's all in writing. That's something we need in place to take care of that. So I'd say let's just move forward with some of this stuff.
We're already working on that. It's very common now in municipalities. I had it in my last community. What we'll put together is it'll be an ordinance so that people that pull housing permits in subdivisions that have the final lift down, these subdivisions that we're talking about, will have to provide security in case they damage the road. So we're already working on that. It's very common. Most municipalities have it. We don't, but we will.
Those are all those are all things that staff is working on and we can discuss. But I mean, rather than go meeting after meeting after meeting and see what we do, let's just move on some of these things.
I agree.
Mayor, I remember when you called us last year on the year before, the bad snowstorm. It was like letting us know if we have to plow, we're going to plow. You shouldn't have to make a decision, and we shouldn't have to make a decision. Let's get these roads done so our highway department can make them safe. There is no questions at all if fire and police can get in there. I know it's going to add more work to the highway department, but they love to work.
I'll tell you one thing. It's not uncommon in subdivisions. The last subdivision I did in Frankfurt, there were 4 homes in there. The finale was 39 or 36. The market had fallen off the cliff. Frankfurt came to me. They had a letter of credit. They said, because we can see that the housing market has taken a hit, if you're willing to put the final lift on the streets and you're willing to do your final improvements according to your approved plan, we'll let you have a letter of credit. I went in, I put the final lift on. To this day, there's only 6 homes in the subdivision. But the subdivision they may be due to trees, the whole 9 yards, but it has a final lift on it, and the letter of credit was released because the subdivision was done by the developer, me, to the standards that Frankfurt wanted. Now, we're in a different situation where we're talking to a ghost. There's nobody there. So what I think we need to do, and I think we're pretty much in agreement here, is go in there. Roads are life safety issues. We can't get in the snow plow. We can't take control of them. So let's get in, let's do the asphalt on these subdivisions, and we can bust that number out and figure what that is of this whole study that H&R Green did. And H&R Green can do it for us, their staff can, because we have the studies. And come back and make a proposal to go in the ones that we agree on, which I suggest you all read H&R Green's report and contact the village manager, either in person or email, that you would support finishing up these. The private one, you're not gonna. What you wanna do with the one where the developer still is coming in and pulling permits and still not producing an LLC. You know, what you wanna do with some of this stuff, but let's move this thing forward.
Yes, I agree. Carrie, could you do one thing for us? Sure. With what the mayor just got done saying, with someone pulling a permit, us being home rule, do we have the power to put something forward that would, no matter what they sold after that, or they tried building, they would have to, like I said, basically an impact fee, same way they do with the school. Because that's what it is, you're putting an impact on the village, because someone's making some money on this. Well, now it's time to just, instead of making a profit if you even have a wash, but you're getting some money forward. Can we put a hold so that we can force them into paying, or at least making sure that they finish what they're supposed to?
You know, it's requiring whoever is going to build to deposit a certain sum of money with the village to assure that at least a portion of the public improvements that they would otherwise benefit from, or will benefit from, will be paid for.
Right.
I'll get back to you with an answer at the next meeting, okay?
And then another question for Mike, I don't know how it's structured. The sidewalk and the front yard tree, in the approved plans for the developments, you know, when we approve them and stuff like that, is it the developer's responsibility for the entire site to provide the sidewalk and the tree in the front yard, or is it the individual site owner that's responsible for the sidewalk in front of the house and the tree in the front yard?
Either way. Yeah, either way. I mean, typically when it was the developer doing the entire subdivision, of course, he was putting it in. But as we've been getting the individual lots, they are putting it in.
Okay, and that leads me to my next question for Carrie, is how does our ordinance read for who's responsible for that right now?
It could be either.
Okay, can we change our ordinance to read in these subdivisions that are bankrupt, foreclosed on, or what have you, that part of the building permit fee is to do the tree in the front yard, the sidewalk in front of the house, whereas, like Mike was saying, in some cases, the developer was responsible, in some cases, the builder, you know, depending.
It actually already is, Mayor. I mean, you can't build a house if there's a sidewalk required or a tree required. You can't build a house and not do those things, so it's already.
Yeah,
Okay, but the question was the developer that's gone now
Either-
responsible for it, or is the person that...
Either the developer who builds the spec house, that we're talking about a spec house, or like in Erin Hills right now, we have a couple of building permits. Those are home owners, people who are building their own homes. They'll be required to do it. So
Okay,
it could be either
because
way.
you're confusing us with the words. The developer is the guy who
It could
builds
be
the
either
site.
one.
The builder is the builder of the home. So I'm trying to say that how, you're saying either one. I'm trying to strengthen the thing by saying the person that comes in for a building permit is responsible for the tree in the front yard. They're responsible for the curb, to fix the curb in front of the house. They're responsible for
The occupancy permit isn't granted unless those things are in place. If
Okay,
it's the
good.
winter and you can't plant a tree, then you get security for the tree and plant the tree.
Okay.
So,
many builders in their contracts with the people that they build for require that the prospective owner provide a deposit with the builder for exactly what you're talking about. So that, I mean, the builder's not reaching into his or her pocket, they're reaching into the prospective owner's pocket, so they have money to do what you've just been talking about.
It's usually built in the price of the home.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Just one other question, because lighting's involved in this too. In the subdivision I'm in, when we moved in, you had to have 2 trees in the parkway, and if you were corner home, you had to have 4 trees. You have to have the sidewalk in on one side, so they decided what it was going to be. Plus, you also had to have your own light. There are no lights in our subdivision except for your own light that you would put at the end of your driveway. Why couldn't we do something like that too, rather than you get some of these subdivisions right now that don't have any lights? I mean, Dennis, I don't mean to point you up, but I mean, you go through his subdivision, the only lights you have are the lights that are on the front of the house or a light pole on your property.
The yard light.
Right, but no, there's a couple lights in the subdivision, but there's none in ours whatsoever, and it's lit up to where you can see everything you need to do. And it doesn't become the responsibility of the village, it becomes the responsibility of the homeowner. And it's for their own safety, and at the same point, it takes some of the stuff off the table. My big concern on this was, most people don't understand when we come to them, we put out in a newspaper, whatever it is, we're looking for, when we went for the bond, we're looking for $6 million to do some of this stuff, and they're all going, what the hell are you doing? This is what we're trying to do, is just show them that we are trying to make this right. I do feel bad for the people that kind of got stuck, especially the homeowners that are in there right now that didn't get the opportunity to get some of this stuff done. But now's the time to correct it. And Mayor, like you said, you're doing great with the LOCs for anyone that's coming in right now. Unfortunately, we do have some that kind of bit us in the butt. Well, now we just, like Trustee DeVivo said, this is what should be done. Let's do it. Bells and whistles, we take a look at down the line and figure out who can pay for it. But there's a way around this.
Okay, so why don't we leave it at,
Can
go
I
ahead,
just want to
Trustee
make one more comment? It's pretty depressing to read some of this information. 25% lower than proposed value. Another subdivision, 25% lower than proposed value, 19% shortage in volume, 10%, 18%, and this goes on and on. Mike made a comment about that. I understand we need to go in there, and I think after talking to H.R. Green and talking to Mike Salamowitz that there probably are some fairly easy fixes to get these ponds in compliance, because right now the volume is short, and you're talking about a handful of houses in there. What's going to happen if we don't do something and address these ponds and this gets built out? At some point, we think we're flooding now. I mean, it's going to be a mess. So I think that that's something we need to keep focus on and look at in the future.
I agree with you, and the final lift will also bring the water in a little bit more timely fashion to the detention ponds than a binder that's 2 inches below curb, which conveys the water. So there are things, you do this, you look at the next thing, and I would lend to the professionals to give us recommendations of a priority if you want to get started on it. I have talked with them, and they feel that the final lift is the most important thing. But I want you all to understand something too. If you look at your estimates, the final lift is probably the most expensive of the things that need to be done in these subdivisions, so you know.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Can I make one more comment?
Sure.
Sorry.
Sure.
The other thing is that one of the recommendations from H.R. Green was that when we do decide what we're going to do with this final lift, that we go out for bid, perhaps with the highway department, and combine everything when they do the roads, and we might get better deals. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Okay. And one other suggestion that I think I'd like to make is that the subdivisions that the builders are still in that have not been willing to produce a bond or a letter of credit, the bank, they owe the bank a lot of money on that subdivision. If the builder isn't willing to do it, you may have the opportunity to go to the bank and just say, you need to understand something. These guys that borrow the money from you, if they don't produce a letter of credit, they're not getting any building permits from the village of Homer Glen. So therefore, you're in as big trouble as they're in trouble. So I think that may be one way to get the letters of credit from the builders that are still building, that refuse to produce letters of credit.
So Mayor, if I could just sum up real quick, because I know it's late, and just so you know that staff will continue to do work after tonight's meeting regarding this. So Sue and Mike and myself and everybody that's working on finishing out the documentation that we're putting together with Carrie will continue to do that, and we'll start delivering one of these to Carrie probably 1 or 2 a week going forward. In addition to that, after hearing tonight's discussion, I think, which I think you'll all agree is maybe a little bit of a departure of previous discussions we've had about this. So what staff will do is we'll work with H.R. Green, talk about it some more, look at the subdivisions of higher priority, and start putting together a plan for the engineering work that would be necessary, the bidding out, and things of that nature in a timeline. Now, because these are not accepted roads, this is not going to be an MFT project. We will not be able to use MFT money for these roads because they're not accepted. We'll have to deal with that. So you couldn't mix it with an MFT program like the township does. It would have to be done a little bit differently. But you have so many roads here in these in the top tier subdivisions that you might still get quantities of scale, things of that nature, so get some pretty good pricing. So we'll start doing all that work now that you've given us the direction on that, and continue the work we're doing on the packets that we're preparing for the village attorney so that he can give you the legal options subdivision by subdivision. We've prioritized the subdivisions, Cypress Point, Glenview Walk, various others, so those are the ones that we're paying attention to first. So I think I started talking to Trustee Sabo.
Trustee Sabo, go ahead.
Well, I know that the attorney has one, we've all known that, and there may be in the ones that are being investigated, we may find something that might pertain to letter of credit. Is that possible?
Well, we've already uncovered a lot of documentation. We're organizing it and cross-referencing it and see and whatnot. Anybody that has any information they'd like to give us would be great. We have not yet stumbled upon an outstanding letter of credit, which of course we wouldn't, because these subdivisions are so old. We would have heard from the banks over the past couple of years. These letter of credits just don't sit at banks for years and years and years with them never communicating with you. So I've never expected, since I became aware of this after you hired me, that we would stumble upon a letter of credit in any of these subdivisions.
Okay, well,
Moving forward, so you know the process, if you could leave that, Glen. Sure. Moving forward in the process, we have automatic renewals now. I mean, the bank is contacted, it's automatically renewed, that type of thing. So this will not happen again. So go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Well, there's so much to fix in these. It's not possible for this board to fix them all, unless there's some creative way to find something where something happens. But I agree with the life safety situation. I also agree with not issuing permits in subdivisions that are non-LOCs. It's been going on. I think that should stop. And I've asked for that to stop. I've questioned it and so forth over a period of time. I'm concerned about individual lots in these subdivisions that people may want to build on. And I know that you talked about the different things that can be done that they can provide, the sidewalk, the tree and so forth like that. But the big issue is that the more people that come into these subdivisions, the more problems that are created, because then there's more hard surface, there's more water runoff. What do we do? What do we do about those? The person that's bought this lovely loft and they want to settle in Homer Glen, and do we say go ahead and build it, knowing the situation, or do we say why don't you wait, or what happens to those people? That's my concern. Do they want to move in? Do they purchase a lot? Do they want to move into a subdivision that looks like that?
Well, I think the answer to that is if you become proactive and you start doing some of the improvements, putting final lifts on them, they'll be reassured that the village is understanding the situation, is trying to resolve the situation as they can afford it, as they can do their research on what assets they might be able to foreclose on themselves, on people that have assets. But to give them the indication that we are aware, we know the problems, we are working, we are solving. I think that gives a clear indication to people that it's safe to come to Homer Glen and build in these subdivisions.
Well, if somebody owns a lot and they see that the subdivision hasn't been taken care of, or it's not producing, or it's not going anywhere, wouldn't they question whether they should invest? I mean, that's a real issue.
Well, right now you're pulling in and you're running over manholes that are sticking 2 inches out of the ground, and curbs that are in disrepair. And when you fix the curbs and you put the final lift in, and somebody drives in and says, "Boy, there's a nice smooth road and it looks nice, and let me investigate a little bit more," I think you have a better chance at having these subdivisions build out, and the tax base that they create for the village through the head tax and the sales tax dollars that they spend in the community are going to outweigh the amount of dollars that we put in to try to jumpstart these subdivisions that have these issues, whether is this person, whether it was this person's fault or that person's fault. We know our issue, and I think we make an effort. I think the people are going to view it as the village understands the problem, is doing something about it.
Well, I know that we want to go forward, and we've talked about many of the things that are possible. But those people that move in and they have our own individual arts are going to expect more than just the road. And just the road to be repaired or the curbs, something. And so that presents more problems for us to be concerned with. And then what happens with the rest of the subdivision is unanswerable at this time.
Well, we know the extent of the problem through the study. We have to start somewhere, and I think the way you start moving the ball forward is you address the life safety issues, which is the ingress and egress of the subdivision, and the ability of fire safety equipment to get in there, the ability of a highway commissioner to go in and be able to snowplow. And we continue to look at these in an individual basis, you know, how bad the situation is. Seeing that somebody's walked away from a subdivision, can we be more creative with different engineering skills to make ponds more effective immediately at a lesser cost? I mean, but we have to start somewhere.
I agree with that. We have to start someplace.
Okay.
I don't know where this is going to take us. That's the
Okay.
problem.
All right, and does anybody have any questions for H&R Green? Because they're getting tired of standing there.
Good job.
Nice presentation, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the village staff has direction.
Thank you.
All right, and then that'll be it for the workshop for tonight. Is there any old business?
Just a quick comment. Cam, thanks for clearing up the situation with the letters from the electrical.
Right.
Because there are a couple of residents here tonight that expressed that they hadn't gotten letters. I know I did not get one, and a few of residents in my subdivision and adjacent subdivisions haven't. So at least now I'll be able to tell them in the next week or so we should be.
They should be mailed out next week.
But
We're
thank you.
not mailing them out ourselves, as you know, so we have to rely on other people. But they've all been very apologetic because they're trying to move it as quickly as possible.
Very good, thank you.
Great. Is there any other old business? Is there any new business? Okay, then the next item is executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing land acquisition and employment performance and compensation?
And so
First by trustee Sabo, second by trustee DeVivo. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo? Aye. Trustee Pajanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo? Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Motion carries. How about we take 5, we'll leave the mayor's office for executive session, and shouldn't be that long.
Okay, good.